What if the only way to survive was to eat your own kind? Not out of cruelty, not out of madness, but out of pure, freezing desperation. A research team trapped in the Arctic, no food, no rescue, no hope. Until one night, they made a choice that changed everything. But here's the question that no one dares to ask. What happens after you eat the dead? When the hunger does not fade, when the body changes, and when the line between human and monster disappears forever. This is not just a story about survival. It is a story about what happens when humanity devours itself. Stay till the end, because the experiment they began is still not over. Headphone hit play, and enter the cold. The wind howled through the broken windows of the abandoned research station. Snow drifted inside, melting on the metal floor, leaving thin, glistening puddles. Dr. Hale adjusted his cracked glasses, staring at the last page of the survival log. Day 47, food supply exhausted. His hand trembled as he wrote it. Outside, the frozen wasteland stretched endlessly, white and silent. No movement, no life, only the echo of his own heartbeat. He turned toward the dark corner of the room where the others once slept. Now there were only empty sleeping bags. And stains, dark stains. He whispered to himself. Could we survive eating only humans? The question echoed in his skull, colder than the air that burned his lungs. He remembered the first night they decided. The storm had trapped them. The temperature dropped to 40 below. Rations were gone. And Samuel had not woken up. Hale could still hear the sound of the knife scraping bone. The smell, sweet, metallic, unforgettable, filled the air. They told themselves it was science. A survival experiment. They said they would measure the effects, take notes, remain rational. But rationality had vanished with the daylight. By day 30, they had eaten through their moral boundaries as easily as flesh. Now, Hale was alone, the last subject. His breath fogged the air as he stared at the mirror, gaunt and trembling. He whispered, "If no one is left, does the experiment end?" The silence pressed against him. Then, a sound, a faint scratching at the metal door. Slow, deliberate. He froze. Every hair on his body rose. The scratching turned into knocking. 3 knocks. Then a voice, soft, muffled, almost human. "Hale, it is your turn." The door handle moved. He stumbled back, heart hammering against his ribs. The voice grew louder. "Hale, you wanted to know if we could survive eating only humans." The handle turned. The hinges groaned. Light spilled into the room, revealing a figure standing in the doorway. Thin, pale, eyes sunken deep into the skull, yet glimmering with something alive. Something hungry. Hale's breath caught. It was Samuel, or what was left of him. The skin on his face hung loosely, gray and cracked like old parchment. But his lips twisted into a grin. "You said this was science," Samuel whispered, stepping closer. The floor creaked under his bare feet. Each step left a faint, red mark. Hale stumbled backward, hitting the table. Test tubes clattered to the ground, shattering like tiny screams. "I buried you," Hale gasped. "You were gone." Samuel tilted his head. "You ate me," he said softly. "You wanted to know how it felt to consume your own kind." His voice was calm, steady, as if discussing a lab report. "But you never asked what happens to the ones who are eaten." Hale's knees weakened. The room seemed to shrink, the air thick with the iron scent of blood and melting ice. Samuel moved closer, his breath visible in the cold. It smelled like rot and smoke. "You wanted to know if we could survive eating only humans," he whispered again, reaching out a trembling hand. Hale's back hit the wall. Samuel's fingers brushed his cheek. Cold, soft, almost gentle. Then Hale saw it. Samuel's teeth. They were sharp, jagged, not human anymore. Samuel smiled wider. "You were right, Hale," he said, voice breaking into a rasp. "We can survive, but not as humans." The lights flickered. The wind roared through the cracks in the walls. Hale screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the storm. When silence returned, only one sound remained. Chewing. Slow. Wet. Relentless. And somewhere in the corner, a voice murmured into the darkness. Day 48, subject number 2 complete. The sound of chewing stopped. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence that pressed against the metal walls like a living thing. Then footsteps. Slow, uneven. They echoed through the corridor, followed by the faint drag of something wet across the floor. Hale's journal lay open on the table, its pages fluttering in the icy breeze. The ink was still fresh. The last line read, Day 48, subject number 2 complete. But a new line was being written. The pen moved on its own, scratching, scribbling words that bled into the paper. Day 49, hunger remains. The lights flickered again, dimming to a dull orange glow. Something moved in the reflection of the cracked mirror. Not Hale, not Samuel, something else. A shape, hunched and trembling, its outline human but twisted. The reflection tilted its head slowly, as if studying the viewer. Its mouth stretched open wider than it should. Much wider. Rows of sharp, broken teeth shimmered in the dim light. From the corner of the room came the faint sound of whispering, multiple voices overlapping, chanting one word over and over. Consume, consume, consume. The door to the corridor creaked open again, and cold light spilled in. In that light, several shadows stood waiting. They looked human once, faces torn, eyes hollow, hands stained crimson. One of them stepped forward and whispered, You joined us, Hale. You finished the experiment. The others smiled, in perfect unison. Their teeth glistened. Their bodies twitched as they moved closer, circling him like predators. Then from deep within the walls, a low rumble echoed, metal shifting, pipes groaning, like the building itself was breathing. A single phrase appeared across the wall, written in thick, dripping lines of dark red. We are the survivors. The whispering stopped. The air went still. And as the light finally died, one last sound filled the frozen air. A soft laugh. Cold, broken, and human no longer. The laughter echoed through the darkness like a broken record. Each note warped, distorted, twisting into something that no longer sounded human. Then came the faint hum of machinery. Somewhere deep beneath the floor, old generators stirred to life, coughing out flickers of dim blue light. Hale, or what remained of him, lifted his head. His skin shimmered in the glow, stretched thin, translucent. Veins pulsed like faint rivers of light beneath it. The others watched him, silent, still, waiting. He blinked slowly, his eyes clouded but aware. A memory drifted through his fractured mind. The first day of the expedition. The laughter, the warmth, the promise of discovery. They had come here to study starvation, to push the limits of human endurance. Now, they had pushed too far. The experiment had become something else, something alive. The building groaned again, and one of the metal walls split open like skin tearing apart. Steam hissed through the crack. A shape crawled out. It moved like liquid, shifting and twisting, its surface rippling with faint reflections of faces. Samuel's, Hale's, the others. Their eyes, their mouths, their voices, all fused together. The mass whispered in 1,000 overlapping tones. We survived by consuming ourselves. Hale staggered backward, but there was nowhere to go. The floor beneath him began to soften, melting like ice under a flame. He fell to his knees. The blue light pulsed faster, brighter. Each pulse revealed glimpses of bones, fragments of old experiments, notes scrawled in desperation across the walls. Do not eat the dead. They come back. The hunger changes you. Hale tried to scream, but his voice cracked. The thing in the wall reached for him, slowly, deliberately. Its fingers were made of flesh and metal, fused together in perfect horror. When it touched his arm, Hale felt every nerve ignite. Pain and memory collided. He saw every moment, the decision, the first bite, the warmth of blood in the snow. And then, the hunger returned. Deep, endless gnawing. He looked at the others, and they looked back with the same need burning in their hollow eyes. One by one, they turned toward each other. The sound began again. Chewing, tearing, breathing. And in the distance, through the radio's static, a voice crackled to life. Base camp to Station 7. Do you copy? We are sending a rescue team. Please respond. The radio hissed. Then, through the static, a voice answered, calm, trembling, familiar. Copy that. This is Dr. Hale. Experiment successful. A pause. Then softly, but we are no longer human. The radio crackled once more. Static hissed and popped, filling the silence with a sharp, electric pulse. Dr. Hale, say again? What do you mean no longer human? A voice asked, faint and distant, like a ghost calling through a storm. Hale stared at the microphone. His reflection glimmered faintly in the steel panel above it. The face looking back was thin, stretched wrong. Eyes too dark, skin too pale, mouth too wide. He turned the knob, increasing the signal. The other voices in the room fell silent, watching him. Their movements were slow, unnatural, like puppets dangling from invisible strings. Hale leaned close to the mic. Send no one, he whispered. The words came out broken, layered with an echo that did not belong to him. Behind him, Samuel's shadow stretched across the wall, bending, twisting. The others followed, their bodies merging with the darkness, until it pulsed like a single living organism. The radio hissed again. We are coming, Dr. Hale. Hold tight. 48 hours. We will reach your position. A long pause. Then Hale smiled. A slow, deliberate smile that showed teeth slick with red. He pressed the transmit button again. Affirmative, he said softly. We will be ready for you. The others began to move. Not walking. Flowing. Their limbs shifted, fusing into new shapes as they spread across the floor like a shadow made of hunger. The walls trembled. Pipes burst, releasing a hiss of freezing vapor. Frost crawled up the metal, glittering in the dim blue light. The mass began to hum, a low, rhythmic vibration that made the floor quiver beneath Hale's feet. He looked around the ruined lab. Broken test tubes, torn notes, the scent of old blood and iron. And he began to write again. Day 50, the hunger adapts. His handwriting was no longer neat. It was erratic, clawed into the page. He paused, lifted his head, and listened. From the distance, faint but clear, came the rumble of engines. The rescue team. They were close. Hale closed the journal. Let them come, he whispered. Behind him, the others whispered the same words, perfectly in sync. Let them come. The blue lights flickered once more, then turned red. Somewhere deep in the compound, something massive began to wake. The walls pulsed like veins. And in the storm above, a helicopter light pierced the darkness, descending toward the station below. Its pilot radioed in, unaware of what waited beneath the snow. Station 7, this is Rescue 1. We have visual contact. Inside, Hale lifted his face to the ceiling, his smile stretching impossibly wide. His voice, now a chorus of many, answered softly, almost tenderly. Welcome to the experiment. The helicopter descended through the blizzard, blades cutting through the frozen air like knives. Snow whipped around the cockpit windows, and the pilot squinted to see the faint silhouette of the station below. Visibility low, he muttered. Landing anyway. We cannot lose them again. The radio hissed with faint static. Then Hale's voice returned, soft, distant, but oddly calm. Copy that, Rescue 1. We are ready. The co-pilot frowned. Ready? For what? There was no answer. Only silence. As they landed, the snow seemed wrong. It was too dark in places. Stained, almost. The rescue team stepped out. 3 figures in thick Arctic gear, faces hidden behind frosted visors. Their boots crunched on the ice. Steam rose from vents in the cracked metal walls of the station. A door creaked open ahead. Warm light spilled out, a strange reddish glow, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Dr. Hale, one of them called. No reply. They entered cautiously, flashlights sweeping over frost-coated walls and scattered lab equipment. A journal lay open on a nearby desk, the final page soaked in something dark. It read, They are here. The cycle continues. The lead rescuer turned. A sound echoed through the corridor. Soft footsteps, slow and dragging. Who's there? She called out, aiming her light into the darkness. The beam caught something at the far end of the hall. A man standing perfectly still. Thin, barefoot. His eyes glowed faintly in the red light. Dr. Hale. He smiled, tilting his head slightly. You came, he said, his voice echoing with strange harmonics, as if several people spoke through him at once. The team took a cautious step forward. What happened here? Hale's smile widened. Survival, he said softly. We found the answer. Behind him, the walls began to move. Flesh-colored shapes pressed against the metal from inside. Faces, hands, entire bodies struggling to emerge. The rescuers froze. What is that? One whispered. The others, Hale replied. They're still hungry. The floor split open beneath their feet. A mass of twisting limbs, all beating as one. The storm finally broke. The sun rose weakly over the frozen plain, casting long, pale streaks of gold across the snow. For the first time in weeks, the wind was still. Silence hung heavy over the research station, its walls half buried in ice, its antennas broken and bent like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. Inside, the lights flickered one last time, then went dark. The journal that once belonged to Dr. Hale lay open on the floor. Its pages fluttered in the faint breeze, leaking through the cracks in the wall. One final entry, written in uneven strokes, filled the last page. Day 51. The experiment has concluded. The hunger ends when there is nothing left to consume. We are part of what we study now. We learned that survival is not about food. It is about surrender. The ink trailed off there, ending in a long, jagged line. Beyond the station, the ice began to shift. Cracks spidered across the frozen surface, glowing faintly from beneath. And then, slowly, the ground stilled again, as if the earth itself decided to rest. Hours later, a second rescue team arrived. They found a helicopter frozen in place, doors open, engine silent. The snow was undisturbed, except for faint trails leading away from the station toward the mountains. The tracks ended abruptly at the edge of a deep crevasse. Inside that darkness, faint echoes whispered back, too soft to understand, too human to ignore. One of the rescuers swore they heard a voice say their name, but when they turned, no one was there. The team marked the site as abandoned, the experiment terminated, the area unsafe for further exploration. They left as the sun began to sink again behind the horizon. And for a brief moment, as the last light disappeared, something stirred beneath the ice. A ripple, a breath, and then silence. The wind rose once more, carrying away the last trace of Station 7 and the people who had tried to answer a single, terrible question. Could we survive eating only humans? The answer was never meant to be known.